here's the worst free agency signing of every NFL team's history. Shit happens, we all make mistakes. I've stubbed my toe before. I stubbed my toe while recording this video. Or maybe you invest your whole franchise and millions in a player that never works out. Some mistakes are clearly bigger than others, so I will be listing these from bad to worst free agency signings, which means I will be revealing the worst free agency signing in NFL history at the end of the video. I cover the NFL 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and twice on Sundays. So if you're an NFL fan like me, make sure you're subscribed to the channel with notifications on, and like the video before you forget. And it's the way that you can support me for completely free, so I can keep doing what I do, which is inform all of you about your favorite NFL teams while you do what you do. All right, moving on to the NFC's worst free agencies of all time next. We did the AFC yesterday. I'll tell you how you can get to that video at the end of this video also. The Seattle Seahawks are coming first on the list, signing Eddie Lacy. The reason this isn't further down in the rankings is simply because it didn't really have any impact on the Seattle Seahawks, other than the one season. They signed Eddie to a one-year deal worth up to around $7-8 million. They only ended up playing 9 games, had 180 yards rushing. There were red flags in this signing from the get-go. The Seahawks famously had to put clauses in Eddie Lacy's contract to keep him below a certain weight, and he still broke the contract and went over that weight. If you need to ask a player to lose weight to play on your football team, maybe don't sign him. Speaking of guys that should have never been signed, the Packers should have never signed Martellus Bennett. Unfortunately, Jermichael Finley's career ended early due to injury, leading the Packers to signing Bennett to a 3-year, $21 million deal. Unfortunately, Bennett was a disaster. He played in 7 games. Caught 24 passes while a Packer. I had to do some digging to find the Atlanta Falcons' worst free agency signing of all time. The conclusion I came to was when they signed edge rusher Ray Edwards. A lot of people don't know about Edwards, but I believe he had back-to-back 8-sack seasons in 2009 and 2010. Leading to him leaving the Vikings and signing a huge deal with the Falcons. Just to be out of the league in 2 seasons, to go and pursue his boxing career. I guess he did go 12-1, so I guess this decision was better than the Falcons' decision to sign him. Speaking of the Minnesota Vikings, their worst free agency signing of all time is Fred Smoot. The second-round pick for the Redskins in 2001, they didn't really play that great for Washington, so when he hit the market, it was shocking when the Vikings signed him. They gave him a 6-year, $34 million contract. He did end up playing for 2 seasons in Minnesota and start every game, but was released, only getting 2 interceptions in those 24 or 25 games. The Lions' worst signing ever is also a tight end, same as their NFC North brothers. And they went out and got tight end Jesse James. Signed a massive 4-year, $25 million contract, but would only end up catching 30 total passes while a Lion. Didn't end up being the elite run blocker that he was for the Steelers. Bears have been looking for a quarterback forever. They've signed plenty of terrible ones. So I had a hard time choosing, but I ended up going with Mike Glennon because he gave him a 3-year, $45 million payday. This will be benched for Mitchell Trubisky after 4 starts. If you got a boring-ass name like Derek Anderson, you're not going to be a star in the NFL, and I wish the Arizona Cardinals realized that before they signed him. He ended up 16-18 as a starter, despite Cardinals fans having so much hope in Anderson, ending up being benched in his final season after a 2-7 start. The Dallas Cowboys actually have been pretty good in free agency over the years, and they took a huge risk on Greg Hardy, signing him to a 1-year, $11.3 million deal. It's like one of the only free agency signings that hasn't worked out for the Cowboys. For the Saints, I ended up going with Brendan Browner as their worst signing in free agency history. The corner was excellent, a bruiser with the Seattle Seahawks, a key member of the LOB. Then went to New England and continued to win Super Bowls with them, leading to him signing a 3-year, $15 million deal with the Saints, where he fell off a cliff and was terrible. The LA Rams' worst signing ever happened recently when they signed wide receiver Allen Robinson. After the Rams won the Super Bowl in 2020, 2021 was not so hot. But when they came back in 2022, they brought a super offense together. They had Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, and then brought in Allen Robinson. But unfortunately, just like Allen Robinson was struggling in Chicago, he continued to struggle, fooling all of us fantasy owners in LA. And the 3-year, $46 million contract the Rams signed him to was flush when he was traded to the Steelers the next offseason. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers' worst free agency signing of all time is Tom Brady. I'm just kidding. Maybe that's their best. Like the video if you want to see the best free agency signings ever. If we get this to 50 likes, I will make a whole separate video on that topic. But the real worst free agency signing in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history is defensive tackle Chris Baker. They signed him to a 3-year, $15 million deal, but he was just terrible, man. Crazy enough is that the year he signed to the Buccaneers were being featured on Hard Knocks. So they caught on camera Baker being a terrible teammate. Lazy. And Gerald McCoy and Levante David pulling their fucking hair out because they couldn't get this guy on the right track. He was released after just 1 season with the Bucs. The Panthers' worst free agency signing of all time by far is Sean Gilbert. And the Eagles thought they were getting an all-pro when they signed nominee Asamoah in 2011. Asamoah was coming off 3 straight Pro Bowl seasons with the Raiders and was an all-pro as well. And once he signed his 5-year, $60 million deal, this Eagles team was so good they were calling it the Dream Team. They're comparing the Eagles to one of the most historic basketball teams in the history of human life. Yet we all know what happened. They absolutely fell apart, and Nnamdi Asomugha did not work out. For the first time ever, I'm just going to say he should have stayed a Raider. But their division rivals did worse on the other side of the ball when they signed wide receiver Kenny Golladay. Golladay got 4 years, $72 million, yet only ended up catching 43 passes as a Giant before he was released, and I believe 0 touchdowns. 49ers had the second worst free agency signing ever when they signed running back Lawrence Phillips. This dude was a beast in college, which is why the 49ers felt like they could find whatever he had in the NCAA when they signed him. But this is the second worst free agency signing ever because this is the person that missed the block that ended Steve Young's career. So that alone already makes it one of the worst free agency signings ever. And then also this guy went on to be a terrible running back and terrible person. He ended up being sentenced, I think, to like 25 years in prison because he had too many assault charges against mostly women. A few years into his sentence in 2015, he'd actually kill one of his cellmates before dying himself in prison in 2016. You're probably thinking, there was a worse free agency signing than that? Yes, when the Washington Commanders, back then the Redskins, signed Albert Haynesworth. If you know anything about free agency signing history, you already probably knew when the video started that this is the worst one in NFL history. I made the AFC video and dropped it a few days ago, and I won't spoil which signing it was that was the worst ever in the AFC, but this is still way worse than that one too. He signed a 7-year, $100 million contract with the best defensive tackle in football right before we get into the Aaron Donald era. His first year, he was unproductive and was constantly complaining about his own coaches to the media. That's so bad that the Washington Commanders had to just give up on him and trade him to Bill Belichick and the Patriots in 2011. Spoiler, that didn't work out either. That is the worst free agency signings in the NFC of all time. If you guys want to see the best free agency signings in league history, please like this video. Once it gets to 50 likes, I will drop those videos as well. Again, the AFC's version of this exact video is already posted, so if your favorite team is in the AFC, watch that one right after this one. Will we see any free agency signings this year worse than any of these? Yeah, sooner rather than later, the ball definitely won't lie. Haynesworth, you're a thief.
I gave you fair warning, beware, I'm smack him in the mouth.